My guest today is a licensed marriage and family therapist, avid gamer, and publicly known as the Situational Therapist on TikTok and all of social media. I'm excited to welcome Derrick Hoard.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Did I get your last name
you
right?
You did get that right. Most people have issues with it, but you got it right on the first try.
Every time I start reading an intro, I always remember, I was like, I didn't check how to say their last name. So every time I screw it up.
I've heard Howard, the kids in school love to call me Mr. Hoard. It was just a thing. Like,
really?
It was just very easy. Yeah. Mr. Hoard.
You're from Louisiana originally?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
What part?
Monroe, Louisiana. So not the fun part. Like, it was nowhere near. Everyone only knows like New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and it was like 5 hours north of that. So
really?
There wasn't much to do. Yeah, lots of mud riding.
Mud riding?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know a ton. I've never been to like Louisiana proper. I've heard different things. Mm-hmm. I mean, am I missing anything?
So look, to be fair, I want to like not knock the people, some of the nicest people you ever meet in the world. If your car, you get pulled over on the side of the road, someone will change your tire and give you $20 so you can go get something to eat.
Yeah.
But when they are not there, they are not there, and they will have Confederate flags. My school flag, they had a Confederate flag. The mascot was a Confederate soldier named Johnny Rebel. Like, it was, there's definitely a contrast there. But I do want to say this, man. I mean, I miss it after being in Seattle for so long. I really do, because at least, I mean, I know where to go there in Monroe, I know where to avoid in Monroe. Here, I have no clue.
Yeah,
I have no clue. You have people here know what not to say. They don't know why they shouldn't say it. They just I shouldn't say this. Okay.
It's such a weird place out here.
So interesting.
And there's so many different pockets too. I mean, you go down to Tacoma, or you go like just different clubs around here for comedy, and it's the audiences vary so much. I love it in the sense of like you get a lot of exposure, but you do need to like get in the car and go to those places too, because everything's like a little bubble.
Right.
But thank you for coming on today. I did want to ask, like, for background, like we're going to be talking about some mental health stuff and like what are your credentials, just so people get an understanding?
100%. So I have a license to practice marriage and family therapy. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice, which is interesting. Most people have a bachelor's in psychology. But I thought, again, I mean, the way that my mind works is kind of strange. So, but I thought that you needed a bachelor's degree to be a cop. And if only all cops thought that, we probably wouldn't have the problems we have today. But I did, and like halfway through the program, I realized, you could just go.
You could just go at 18 years old. You could probably go at 16 in some state. Yeah.
You could. But, I just wanted to make sure I really knew. But I was working at the computing center at my college. And I guess I'll just tell you how I became a therapist, so it'll make more sense. But I was working at the computing center at my college, and I was working on someone's computer, and they asked me, like, well, had you thought about what you want to do for your master's program? I was like, absolutely. I'm going to get my master's in criminal justice so that I can be a probation officer, because obviously that's the next step. Obviously, look, I am a very intelligent person, but I just overthink so much.
Oh, yeah.
To a degree that is...
You would be the most qualified.
I was going to be ready. And so he was like, well, have you thought about, the MFT program?
This was in Louisiana. What school did you go to?
The University of Louisiana at Monroe. It's where I got my bachelor's and my master's.
You would be...
Super cop. I really would. Yeah. I could wear a costume like a superhero.
Can you imagine like whoever's coming in to see you as a probation officer, and you have like the theory and all the education behind you, and like whatever simple problem they have, and you're like, well, if you really think about it.
When you take into consideration the vast amounts of systems that affect you on a daily basis,
sociologically
it's not
speaking,
your fault that you are here right now. I need you to pee in this cup immediately.
So ridiculous,
but that's just kind of, I want to make sure the people I was serving had good help.
You would have gave them the highest level.
Highest level of service.
That's so funny.
So it's like, no, I don't know what a marriage and family therapist is. If I'm going to be a therapist, why would I want to see the whole family? Obviously, it's the individual person that's the problem. But I applied to the program. I was a day late, almost didn't make it in the program. I talked to the person that runs it. We have this conversation like at least once a year where I'm like, I really appreciate you letting me get in, because I tell people, like, I like being a therapist. Being a therapist is nice. It really is. I enjoy taking people on that journey of growth. I enjoy the growth it makes me have to go through. but it's not necessarily being a therapist that I like. It's more the theory that I learned about how people behave that I found was really fascinating, and the way of, so it's called systems thinking, and you can apply that to people, you can apply that to organizations, you can apply that to lots of different things, but it's more reciprocal in nature instead of like cause and effect, like, well, because of this, we did that. We have crime, we need police officers. It's more, it's like, well, what are the systems that go into the problems that we have? And instead of focusing on like an effect of the problem, let's look at the entirety. And like that is what has been really, really awesome. So it took 4-year bachelor's, 2 years to get my master's, 3,000 hours of direct client contact and supervision. I had to pass 2 licensing exams. And after all of that, I finally got the ability to practice independently. So I have an independent practice where I primarily work with people with like ADHD and stuff like that. But I get a lot of different things depending on the situations that people are in.
Okay. Speaking of ADD, I forgot to say, just if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe, notifications bell so you don't miss our upcoming content. Throw a comment in for Derrick or myself. So systems thinking, like, I've heard that term quite a bit. Can you just talk about that?
I mean,
for a
look,
second?
I could try. I mean, I really could try.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult because, not that I don't think you couldn't get it. It's just, it's very hard because it's like you can't break it. You can break it down, but it's like, it's a way of, it's like learning a new language, right? Like when most people learn another language, they learn by like, well, I just know this word and I can translate it. There's a difference between that and thinking in the language that you're going to now speak in.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to see how, for example, the easiest way to explain it is like supply and demand. Most people understand that really, really well.
Yeah.
When the supply goes up, the demand goes down. When the demand goes down, supply goes up.
Yeah.
You can apply that to relationships. Whenever you are over functioning in the relationship and doing everything, then I don't really have to do anything. And you can blame me and you can say that, hey, it's you, you're not doing, but you're doing everything all the time. You're not even giving me the opportunity to do anything.
Yeah.
And in order for you to play that role of not doing anything, I have to be the person that does everything all the time. And so it's really hard to explain, but it's
like market factors drive the behavior rather than like individual cause and effect. Or
yes,
I'm trying to sound smart here.
It's fine. You're doing a great job. And I'm doing a horrible job of explaining. I have one of those things where like I can understand concepts, but then trying to explain it sometimes because I know it. So I just can't. I don't know how to pick a place and say, well, this is it. Like here is the story to explain this. So I probably shouldn't even thrown out systems theory. There are probably
I know it because I work with engineers a lot, and I hear
very applicable.
Okay.
Very applicable to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we probably save that for the deep dive.
Yeah.
So the point is, I love looking at the whole of things and not necessarily the individual. Like most people can only think in terms of linear cause and effect. A caused B, which led to C.
But
Systems
there's
theory,
external.
right. Systems theory is A caused A, B, C, and then C back into A, which goes back and like it's just looking at everything.
This is the smartest thing we've ever talked about
Actually,
on this
eventually we can
podcast.
talk about farts. They're coming. I really think that will be
It's funny.
yeah, we can get there.
We will get there. Like, why didn't we eat something weird before this to just prepare? So where did you do your clinical hours though?
So I did my clinical hours in several places.
Yeah.
I did community mental health, which one day I cannot wait until I get my platform to a place where I can talk about community mental health, because it's a mess. It's a mess. Underpaid therapists, clients not getting. I'm
just remembering this now. We've been doing this podcast for like 3 years.
Yeah.
One of the first people I had on works in the same field, and he like did a lot of work like that. And then I have been to therapy, had a therapy, and they worked predominantly at like Monroe Prison out here. And like, you don't really get to pick where you're working, right? Like you got to get those hours. And so community health,
community mental health. I did methadone maintenance for a while.
Okay.
And I also worked in a juvenile prison in Louisiana, and then I got to work in a little bit of a private practice type situation for one person. But all of those things together, then I got to work at the clinic at my school, and that was a lot of fun too. But all of those things together, it takes about 2 years to get all those hours together meeting people.
And did you like doing the community stuff? Like, was it hard?
The problem is the people who own the businesses.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't know how. They don't. I don't want to say they don't care. I have to be careful. Some of them don't care. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. I have reached too far in my life to start equivocating. They don't care.
Yeah.
They are worried about getting the money. And
Yeah.
and so like as a therapist, I'm trying to think about the needs of the client. What's most important to them? Those people are like, we have 100 units that we can bill for these people for. If you see them 20 times a week, then we can bill. And you know what I'm saying? So that part is soul crushing. Yeah. And it is a business, but you can run the business well and provide good. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with making money, like this capitalistic system notwithstanding. I don't think there's anything wrong with making money, but I just feel like when you do it in a way that's exploitative, which is kind of how they do it down there, especially in lots of community mental health places, but specifically where I'm from in Louisiana, the way that it happens, it's criminal. It really should be outlawed. But
I knew like I had a good therapist when I had been going for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And made a lot of progress. And I was in a session with that person, and I said, like, I feel like I'm doing better. Like, I'm good. And they said, do you want to cut back a little bit? And I was sitting there thinking, like, they could just keep just keep saying, let's just keep going. And that was like, this person has my best interest too. So they're like any work. I'm sure there's good people and bad people, but like when you find the good people, it changed my life. Yeah. Like, how did you go from all that into situational therapist?
So when the situational therapist, and again, I want to make it clear, like situational therapy isn't a thing that exists yet. Like I would have to go through all this research and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. When I say the situational therapist, what I'm trying to do is get people to stop thinking that the problem is within them. So most people are like, oh, I have a chemical imbalance. So there's something, it's the world we live in and the stuff that you have to deal with to cope with it. For example, I grew up with significant religious trauma. Mm-hmm. That is why I am anxious. It is not because there's an imbalance in my brain. It's not because my genetics. It's because I grew up as a child having someone tell me that Jesus is coming soon, and it could be 6 minutes. I don't know when was that him? That loud noise outside, was that Jesus?
Yeah.
You know, but so many people are in denial about the stuff they've been through. My mom used corporal punishment. That wasn't great. I did not turn out fine. I have been divorced. But so many people are in denial about the experiences that they've been through. They don't want to accept it. And so we call it bipolar disorder. We call it depression. We call it everything else other than trauma. You didn't. And no one wants this because it's like it's a stigma. I don't understand. Yes, stuff happened to us, like it's okay.
I've had a couple people on that have talked about religious trauma. Like, can you talk about that?
Yes,
because
all day.
I was like
for the rest of my
raised
life.
Catholic, but then I don't know. It was like sometime around Christmas where I was like, I don't think this is real, and ended up kind of. I mean, I like the idea of having faith. Like I think that like that's good for a lot of people. I'm not trying to shit on religion, but like it sounds like your situation was slightly different.
And a lot of people's is slightly different. And so look, I again don't want to knock religion. I am going to speak freely because like at some point we have to stop centering the conversation around the religious folks. Like that happens all the time. So, I have followers that are religious. I have friends that are Christian. I have friends that are Muslim, Buddhist. Like I have friends from other faiths. But when it comes to like this and religious trauma, like I'm not pulling any punches. Like I don't care. Like, and so I have warned you if you were not here for that. Like if you think that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the light, no one can come unto the Father but by me, you might want to turn it off now because I'm not about
a good time to change.
The problem with religious trauma is that the language does not exist to discuss what has happened to people. There's no way. I grew up being told that the belief system that I was born into, that it was the only one and that everybody else was wrong. And so you have this microcosm, this world that exists, and like you're supposed to be, what they like to say is you're in the world, but not of it. And so what that does is it causes you to create like a split in your mind. You have to be two people all the time. There's the Christian version of yourself, the one who's trying to do the best that they can. And then you have this dark, evil version of yourself that you're supposed to repress. And it's just all the teachings, what
was your dark evil?
So I was told that there was a demon that lived inside of me because I enjoyed watching Sailor Moon and I ran around too much. And I asked weird questions like, where did Eve and Adam and Eve's children, where did they get their wives from? Like, where did their children come from? If it was just Adam and Eve and they had, where did and like,
I would get in trouble for stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all the time. Like
Just asking
logical
questions. Yeah.
And so, and then now that's part of it, because then you grow up afraid to seek knowledge. You grow up afraid to ask questions because you get punished for doing it. And that's why there's so many people who are ignorant right now, because there's literally a traumatic bodily response to seeking out truth, because truth is something that's revealed to you when you're in a cult, not something that you seek out.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny too when you're in that mind space where you're like asking that question and they give you an answer that doesn't
make any sense.
And
they say it like it does.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Am I wrong here? Like, oh, you're just supposed to accept it. Yeah. Got it, coach.
It's just,
hear you.
It's so funny. But then the craziest thing is, so they not fictionalized, but like they created this entire narrative, right? And so they want you to fully buy into that, but they're unwilling to even like, if you have like, well, let's just hypothetically here, let's have this. And they're like, no, this is the only way.
The only way. Mine was very Pentecostal. Like I had a very and it wasn't like Pentecostalism per se, but it was like the some of the practices from it. So people speaking in tongues. I've seen exorcisms, casting out of demons, jumping around, jumping and hollering. I was worried about free will and determinism at like age 12, like 9, 10, 12. I was reading like philosophers trying to see like, am I real? Like, am I saved? Will I lose my salvation? Like,
how did you deal with it,
bro? Porn, probably a lot of that as a child. I'm just being real.
No,
I need something that like, and then you feel hella guilty about it. As a kid, like,
and you were a gamer too, right? Like,
so video games and stuff were really helpful. Oh, just said porn. I just sent that out.
No,
there. It's the truth. It's the truth.
That's probably the age anybody would be getting into.
And
it
wouldn't be something that would be so like exciting to you if you had joy in other areas of your life.
It's an escape.
Absolutely. So
wait, how can I ask how old you are?
Right now? Yeah, 32.
Okay, so we're same age. Right. Like our porn evolution was so, I was talking with somebody about this recently. Like we came up as porn like really started to evolve on the internet. Like it used to be just like pictures.
Yeah.
And so you'd sit there for hours.
Waiting for it to download.
Yeah, yes. Just the slow scan.
Yeah.
And then I think that did impact like how a whole generation of people looked at porn. Because then once videos came out, it's like, I don't know what to do with all of this.
I feel so bad for the kids nowadays, dude. Man. It's because YouTube has, I don't want to get off on it, but YouTube has a really bad softcore porn problem. Like there is a direct pipeline from YouTube.
How dare you, YouTube? I didn't know this.
Really bad,
What?
Bro.
It's like actual softcore?
So like what they do is, I don't know how I know so much about it. I'm just saying, like, this is information.
I mean, I'm sure people like
told me it's not personal.
Yeah.
I want to make it clear.
I love, you have all the options on the internet, but this is it's like, I got a niche over here. It's so funny.
I'm speaking, just this is a public service announcement. But no, I was reading an article about it. That's what I should have said. That would have solved the problem. That would have solved the problem.
We can just edit all that.
No, it's fine. I really feel like authenticity is important. Like this is the maybe apocalypse. Let's just tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I did also read this in an article. But like they have like people that have like these try-on hauls. And there are some people who are legitimately trying on clothes. But then there are other people who have, here's a link to my OnlyFans or here's a link to my other thing. And YouTube doesn't immediately catch it as like, pornography.
It's a feeder system.
Yeah. And so like, it's really, and I'm just thinking like a kid, if I were a kid now in the situation I was in growing up, bro, it would have been bad. The level of access that they have to things is insane.
Everything.
It's insane.
Yeah, and it's good and bad too, because like you can become educated on whatever you want with the internet, but at the same time you can get educated on a lot of shit.
You can.
It's crazy. So you you use porn as an escape. You like were a gamer. Like, I mean, there couldn't have been that much to do in Louisiana, right?
I mean, not really, and I think that even church in and of itself was an escape, right? Like it gave me something to do. Now I was in band. I loved music, I had lots of friends and stuff. But the church was like such a really big part of my life that like, didn't really have favorites of things, I caught what I could. So
when did you like stop believing?
I'm going to be real with you. I have exited the church for a while. I didn't stop believing, like legitimately let it go until coronavirus.
Really? Mm-hmm. Interesting.
I was sitting in my bed, and I was just, I'd reached that point because when coronavirus first started, I think everyone like acted like it wasn't as bad and wasn't as scary. But because I grew up in a religious end times environment, the world is ending. That shit was terrifying to me. Like there was a moment where I was like,
what you heard about your whole life.
This is it. This is what Bishop was talking about. It's the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
Should I get the vaccine? Like it was a whole thing. And
were you doing the TikTok stuff at the time?
I started doing TikTok after coronavirus.
Okay.
Like it was.
Can you imagine those videos, like you going through that experience?
Yeah.
Like that would have been really. Like,
it was really, but it was more like I needed to ritualize the experience. Like I had let go. I was living a sinful life. Like I was dressing, inappropriately and doing things I wasn't supposed to do. So I had. It's deep in. You know what the religious folks would say? God don't like ugly, and that's why that's happened in me right now. I'm getting gastrointestinal because I'm speaking bad about God. That's God. What's happening.
Grab your arm. First full-on heart attack.
And that's why I exercise and work out, because I do speak out against religious trauma, and I don't want something bad to happen to me, so they can say, "Look, child, that's
just turn into Jabba the Hutt."
But no, it was more of a just letting go. Like I remember, and this is really kind of like, it's very personal, but I sat in my bed and I actually had some beads hanging from my ceiling, and I just remember sitting there, and I don't know what I think it was right around George Floyd, and there was just this juxtaposition of all this pain and suffering, and I felt like in my life, like my mind wasn't a safe place. Like George Floyd happened. I didn't feel like the world was a safe place. And then I'm sitting in my house and like I didn't even just feel like I could be safe in my mind, because am I doing what God wants me to do? Is this the right path? And I just remember saying to myself, if God is real and really does love me, then he would understand that I am afraid and terrified of him, not wanting some sort. So if you really love me, you will let me go. I treat it like it was an abusive relationship. Yeah. And so like I had some beads on my ceiling, and I was like, I'm going to rip these beads to represent me letting go of this shit. And I did, and I've never looked back. And it's so scary, because I remember what it was like to be afraid of hell. I remember that. And so like, I don't get mad at people that I see in that. I just... Don't ask me my opinion about it, because I'll really hurt your feelings. Like I think that God's will and slavery are the same thing. It's just the truth, especially in my community.
Trauma around it too. So like anybody that has gone through trauma and sees somebody going through that, it's hard not to just like.
I just don't know how you teach that to someone without it being traumatic. How do you give someone? I feel like trauma is the logical response to accepting that. Like anxiety is illogical. You should be anxious. You should be depressed. You should have OCD, because you believe in this truth. Like that's how you know you're saved, but no one wants to talk about that.
It's just like a giant rule structure too. Yeah. And then to have to operate on those rules and like the consequences of it, it's crazy.
And then to have to make your own after you let go of it. That's the part that's hard. Yeah. It's like you could literally, and so a lot of times what happens is people leave that and then they just start preaching about, proselytizing about something else, like, or atheists now. I remember I read a post that was like, I'm impressed by my own, like, those cringy posts on Reddit from people that are atheists, So, I mean, not trying to throw any shade, but I'm just saying, like, you just jump from one thing to the next. So I'm going to keep talking about it. I do jokes about it in my comedy, because like I feel like that's the only way to really get people's attention is to like joke about it, because other than that it's just so serious.
Yeah, it is. So you gave up faith and then you got into situational therapist. Like what was did you have any idea the reaction that you were get from that?
No, I was mad that parents, because so another thing that happens in religious trauma is corporal punishment. Specifically, I know it happens in a lot of different areas, and I want to be mindful of the space I'm in, because I don't want it to seem like I'm bashing my own community, but corporal punishment is something that's big, spanking. Yeah. And so I got on TikTok.
Why is it called corporal? It sounds like military.
Or is it corporeal? I don't know. I think that has to do with spirits. Corporeal. Yeah, no, that's spirit stuff.
Like people use that term. I mean, my buddy is from Texas and he used that term quite a bit. I was like, I lived in Kentucky at one point in time, and I think they used that word, but it was just, I mean, I had that done to me, and it just was like considered to be
normal.
Yeah. And it still is in a lot of places.
Not in 60 other countries across the world that have banned it. Like it's I mean, there are other places, but like, so yeah. I got famous from making, because I don't call it corporal punishment. The reason they say that is because you don't want to say what you're actually doing, hitting children. Like you don't want to say that. That's that. If you, to deal with who you are as a person, I am the type of grown adult that can put my hands on a child. You have to call it something else, because if you call it what it is, then you have to accept you're a child abuser. That's what you're doing. It's child abuse. So I got on TikTok, and when I tell you I went in. The situational therapist allowed me to be able to go in, and I did not pull any punches, and I was yelling into the void of my camera, and I was just like, because I don't, and you want to be patient with people, but like, man, hitting kids, we've had the research, like, where is my mental illness? Because you got hit as a kid, but anytime someone talks about that, they all say this, I turned out fine. No, you didn't.
Well, you're hitting kids again.
Right. Like, you're the type of person that hits children.
But isn't that the same thing for like sex abuse with kids too? Like the people that have had that done to them, they're way more likely.
I want to be careful with talking, and that's probably something I want to be careful, because I don't have any statistics for that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just pull out of the deepest recesses. I do know that hurt people hurt others. And so just because someone was hurt as a child does not mean that they're going to grow up and do that to others. However, someone who has had that happen to them and has never had any support, because we vilify those people in our society. Like that's the first like if someone gets convicted and they go to jail, oh, they deserve to get hurt. No, they don't. Like they deserve to serve their time. They deserve to have the consequences of their actions. But the folks out here calling for folks to be killed and like that's ridiculous, you know? So we both know that it's a problem, but then we prevent those people from having access to anything to help them even solve that problem, And so that's where I kind of fall in on that.
I mean, that's what comes to mind for me when I bring that up, though. It's just like, okay, you had this terrible thing happen to you as a kid. And then not only, like, I have something in my act right now about trauma being like, it's trauma sucks because it's something shitty that happened to you.
Yeah.
But unless you deal with your trauma, you pass it on to somebody else.
Right.
And so like, not only you had this shitty thing happen, but then now it's your job to like manage this and go get help or whatever. It's basically like emotional herpes.
Right.
Like,
well, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I don't know. I'm not a fan of using herpes in that way to talk about stuff. I'm just this because again, I do my comedy. My therapy informs my comedy, and so I've worked with people who've had herpes, and like when they hear these jokes or when they hear these references, it's like, why are you like? For example, I was on Tinder the other day, and I saw this profile. I'm on Tinder because I have a gambling addiction and I don't like to spend money, and so every time I go on Tinder, there's a chance that someone might recognize me from my life, and I'm like, please don't recognize. When I saw a woman with a profile and it said, congratulations on your sobriety, but I'm looking for somebody I can drink with. I'm like, why come for someone like that? Like, there's no reason to do so. So, I mean, anyway, the point is it's one of those things where it's like people wouldn't have to feel so isolated and separated and forced to work through their trauma on their own if we had people telling stories of their lived experience. One of my jokes in comedy is my mom should have had an abortion. That's a joke, and it's the truth. My mom would have been happy as hell. My mom would have been on billboards. My mom would have had millions of dollars and a community of fans that loved her. Yeah. And I know this is true because she used to tell me how much she hated that I existed all the time, So like, instead of saying, I wish I had never been born. Hey, my mom should have had an abortion. And being able to say that and have other moms look and say, okay, well, that person wishes this. Or even people with like adoption trauma. So it wouldn't be such an individual you're forced to work with.
So funny how much people push back on that, though, still.
Yeah.
It's just, it's ridiculous.
It is. It's really ridiculous.
So you leaned into corporal punishment stuff.
Yeah, I leaned into corporal punishment. I leaned into scapegoating, which is basically a lot of times what happens. People think that they're mentally ill or something's wrong with them.
How did you find the videos though? Because I watched some of the stuff on your channel.
Yeah.
And like, were you just going through TikTok and you found the videos, or like did you?
So, no, I just started off screaming about it because I have a lot of clients who've gone through it. And so I know the stories. And so I know, like, for example, I've had clients who were trying to break away from alcoholism. And the hardest thing about being an alcoholic is other people. because you could do it, but everyone around you needs you to stay an alcoholic in some senses, especially in small towns, because that's how they judge that they're not one. Because alcohol is the worst drug in the world, and we have normalized it and made it okay, but it is the gateway drug. Oh, yeah. And so when someone in a community decides, hey, I want to quit drinking, I want to stop, everybody around them gets hella nervous, because if they stop drinking, they can change and I can't. And so it's really, really hard.
And they're losing their drinking partner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I also forgot why I started talking about this. I really lost it.
Really
where did I find the videos?
Yeah. Because those were the things that there were specific videos I watched where you pulled a clip and kind of broke down what was going on in that situation. And it was very like power. I mean, I've seen some stuff on TikTok where I'm like, how is this on the, I mean, it's almost like E-Bombs world.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. We were just talking about that the other day. And like the stuff that used to be on the internet, like it's gotten wiped pretty well, but like there are pockets of TikTok where you see crazy racist stuff, crazy
child abuse. Some of it even borders on, some of it even borders on, I mean, and it just depends on what your feed looks like and what you like. But the fact is TikTok cultivates that because of the way that the algorithm works. Yeah. And so,
So, you found that video. Where did you get them?
So what would happen is once I started talking about spanking being abuse, people would start tagging me in videos of other people getting hit, or tagging me in videos of parents yelling at their kids, or tagging me and asking me to respond. And so, of course, I would get really upset and angry, and I would respond to those videos. And so that's where I would find that sort of stuff. But for the most part, I would just come in and start the conversation. Like I love dropping like logic bombs to mess with people's heads. And so one time I asked a question. I said, give me a reason to have kids that isn't completely and totally selfish. And people's heads exploded for like 2 weeks, because the truth of the matter is having a kid is selfish. Being selfish isn't bad, but if you don't know how to make that connection, then you just, you calling me selfish, you saying? And it was just, I had hours of just people making videos saying things like, well, I had my kids because I wanted to show them a good life. So you did it because you wanted to, and it was great.
So how do you manage all of that back and forth? I mean, that's gotta be intense for you, right? Because some of the time it's great feedback, other times it's like super aggressive. Like how do you deal with it?
Well, I mean, and I've been canceled on the internet before. I don't want to go into it because I'm writing a book about that, but I do want to let those people know I have not forgot. Oh my God. When I tell you that so I've been canceled on the internet before, and it was over the way that I decided to speak about a very specific issue. And again, I don't want to talk about it and bring that up, but dealing with that, it's just very difficult, because I'm used to being bullied. I was bullied heavily whenever I was a kid. Black folks bullied me, white people bullied me. It's just the way that I was invited bullying into my life. And so whenever I'm dealing with those negative comments online, sometimes it does remind me of that, because it's like whenever I'm used to one person saying, a bunch of different things about me. But when you have a lot of people all saying the same thing about you, that's tough. Because I don't have like TikTok has created this level of fame where you can have all the problems that celebrities have. You can have all the issues and none of the support, none of the public PR team to respond to crisis, because you forgot, or you left out this, or you said something that, was ableist or racist and you had no idea. So you have to kind of cultivate this space in your mind where you name the type of people who are going to hate you and not like you and be mad at going to go out of their way to misunderstand everything you say just because they're chronically online and they want something to be upset about. For sure. You have to know who they are and just disregard them, and just keep the people in mind who will allow you to clarify if you make a mistake, or who you know what I'm saying? And that's
it's such a angels and demons type mindset too on the internet. Like you're with me or you're not, and there's zero room for context. And I'm sure like I will run into it at some point where, like you say, if I post a joke or a bit or something like that, there's some people that it's just not for them. And like when you start, multiplying those numbers too, was it a massive growth for you right away?
I really don't remember. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't pay attention to it. And it's not that I don't pay attention. I love my community. I have a community of people that I'm very inconsistent. I'm working on it, but like they know because my community has some of the same kind of problems that I have. So that's how I'm able to speak to them so directly. But I think the growth came the more that I just told the truth, the more that I just said like truthful stuff. And so when people say, "See, I have 800,000 followers," or however many followers I have, I have a lot of followers. I do, but like not everybody that follows me is in my community. Some people just enjoy the hit of dopamine that they get when they see me upset about something on TikTok. They know nothing about me. They don't know how much I like cheesecake or dislike crunchy grapes or any of the other things that people who've paid attention to me know, you know? And so like, I don't see it in the way that other people see it. You know, I recognize that some people are just smashing the like button and they're just doing it because that's their hit for the day.
It's
and they keep going.
a character you're playing,
absolutely,
essentially.
100%. Yeah.
How is that difficult to manage though at times? Like, do you...
No, I grew up in a religious environment. I know how to play a character. You have to do it all the time. I have to pretend to be under the Spirit. I had to pretend to be saved. I had to pretend to be so many things. So I really like that. The character, I mean, on one hand, it's an element of safety. But two, it really gives me an opportunity to give something. You're mad at the situational therapist. Now, you have no clue who I am. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can recognize me on the weekends, you deserve to say hi to me. Like, that's what that is for. Be sure. Mad at you know what it was? It's just like Jesus, taking the stripes for our sins. The situational therapist can handle it. Cast all your cares upon him.
If there's been anything we've said so far in terms of religious stuff, is referring to the situational therapist as Jesus.
He is. He's there. In fact, yesterday, I was upset. I was walking because look, religious trauma is frustrating and you can get randomly triggered by it. Like if people say have a blessed day, that doesn't mean the same thing to me as it does to others.
You just ruined my week.
Whole day. Right. And so I was walking around Westlake and the Jesus-y people were out. Yeah. And like, man, I just had time that day. And so I have this very like demonic outfit that I can wear. And I have these huge red angel wings. And so I went down to Westlake and I had this sign and I put it in front of the Jesus people and it said, "What if I'm Jesus?" And I just didn't say anything. I just held the sign. And when I tell you the amount of people's brains one guy walked up to me and he started like tearing up and he was like, when I was 12 years old, I was like, hang on a second, guy, you're good. I'm not here for you. Yeah. You're great. Please don't. And then I realized this is a little more serious. But I just wanted to get the Jesus folks because it's just so frustrating.
You wanted to troll them.
I did want to troll them. I wanted to help provide them with an opportunity to deal with the cognitive dissonance inherent in being out in the street and, proselytizing for a man that you don't know what he looks like. And so that's what, rather than trolling. Professionals don't troll people. I provide them with opportunities to make decisions. There's a difference.
Can I ask something just about like the hair? Mm-hmm. Is it based on like gamer culture or is it, cause it's like Super Saiyan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What drove that?
Well, I really wanted to have a way to express like that inner anger and frustration and like because again
the color is great by the way.
I appreciate
it looks awesome.
My earlier content was very very like raw and in your face and anger and frustration and all of those things. And one of the the truth is I realized that like I can't yell at parents to stop hitting their kids just like a parent can't hit their kid to teach them to stop hitting. It doesn't make any sense, And I think it did help. So I still get letters to this day where parents are like, I would have never stopped if you wouldn't have done it like that. And I'm like, but I shouldn't have had to do it in that way.
That's interesting.
So it doesn't mean that I'm not going to go in. I'm still going to go in, but I don't want it to be in that way. Like I want to make sure that I've given you an opportunity. And then when the hair is out or when whenever it's time for the devil trigger, the demon trigger, or if you're, one of those conservative therapists, when I'm being manic, whatever you want to describe it as, I really feel like I just want people to know it's there. Like I'm being calm, I'm being nice, but I could go in if I wanted to because you're not right. There's no universe where it's okay to hit kids.
So do you like craft your persona online around that, like wearing specific things and like because you're wearing your hair's covered some of the time.
Yeah.
And is it based off of that a little bit?
It depends. Yeah. I don't want to go too deep into it, but there is definitely a community of individuals that I am giving a wink and a nod to. Shout out. Moon Knight was a great television show. Did you watch Moon Knight? Oh man, Moon Knight was really good. The people that need to get that will get it. But there's definitely a community of people that I'm speaking to in those costumes.
Is it cartoon or is it
no? They know who they are.
Okay,
you know how like they used to talk in church with past those people know who they are. That's what I want. I don't want to say them out loud, but they know who they are.
Okay.
And so it just gives me different weight. Like, and some of it is the red hair and stuff. A lot of it is protection against that religious trauma, man. I want those folks that think that way, when they see me, like, please leave me alone, man. Like, don't bother me. Like, and I've had one time I had a guy walk up to me and like just stare at me. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at. And I was like, well, that's a very specific insult. And then he walks a little bit further, turns around and says,
specific insult.
It was.
It's very specific. That you could like articulate that in the moment.
So I did say that. Yeah, no, my mind, when I'm there, I'm there. And then he turns around and looks at me and he says, you look like you don't fear the Most High God. How did you know?
Yeah.
What gave it away?
That's so great. Well, the reason why I asked about the gaming stuff though is like I saw on your page like you personally use games to like treat ADHD and stuff.
God,
Can you talk about that a
little
little bit?
I would love to. So look, first off, you got to understand what ADHD is. And this is going to upset a lot of folks. And I don't care because I just don't care. I do care. And everyone is at a different stage in their journey. I don't know where you are. Okay. But if you're at the place in your life where you think ADHD is because of a chemical imbalance, you think ADHD means that you have an executive dysfunction and disorder and you're not responsible for the decisions that you make. And if you think your ADHD means that you shouldn't be held accountable for your actions, I'm not talking to you, turn away. Okay. So at the end of the day, ADHD is just another way to say your behaviors. I have trouble focusing because I have trouble focusing. It's circular explanation. It's not why, it's an explanation of what you do. And so what you need is something to show you your behaviors in a way that you've never seen them before. So I play a lot of competitive fighting games. If you have ADHD and you are impulsive, you're gonna get your ass kicked in fighting games. If you have ADHD and you don't want to practice, you're gonna get your ass kicked in fighting games.
Fighting games like Mortal Kombat,
Street Fighter, anything that requires you to be focused and pay attention and practice like living life. And so there are a lot of people that will play competitive games or play even just regular games, and they think that they are playing the game, but they're really just like going through the motions and doing the basic bare minimum, and it's working, but you could be having so much more fun. And so, there's a video on my channel where I ran into this kid online. He was like 12 or 13. And he was making an assumption about whether or not I was a good player based on the character that I had. And he was like, you blah, blah, blah. And I mopped this child. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to show, don't make assumptions. And so I use it in my therapy practice where I'm like, I'll pick a game, or if they have a game that they like, and I'll show them how their ADHD is getting them in the way of playing it the way they want to. Or when you play, games, you can play them, play the game the way you want to. Don't just follow the make it beautiful, have fun, be extra, do things you don't need to do that are just cool, And so it really gives people a way to look at their behaviors and have immediate feedback and see the game. That's one of the things, with ADHD, so many parents try to use corporal punishment, or they try to use yelling at their kids to make them they don't ever use positive reinforcement, right? But with video game, you instantly know when you did something good. It tells you, And so that feedback loop, the fact that it's fun and that you can see the improvement, it works so much better than a calendar and a notebook ever will.
For sure. It's super interesting. My older brother has it bad, after he has that loop, and he's always been drawn to those types of games,
right.
And it calms him down a lot too. It helps him focus in a way that he wants to, and then he's always doing what you're it's just he does the same thing that you just talked about. You leave him alone, you come back and what? I've never seen anybody play a game like this, and it puts him in a good environment.
Right.
So,
and then once they learn that then I'm like, okay, so in your regular life, who is your character? I love noticing how people all walk the same. I remember the first time I decided I don't have to, I could skip down the street
if I wanted to. And it looks weird and people look at you weird, but I'm having fun, you know? Like, or how do you want to talk in situations when someone upsets you? What does your character do in those moments, you know? And one of the things I love about fighting games and games like that is like the character doesn't get any better. You start making better decisions.
Oh, yeah.
You start behaving differently.
Especially the old versions of those games where like the combinations, you really have to get it down.
You really have to practice. You really do. And so, it's been really fun. I have quite a few people that use it, and then I do Twitch streaming and stuff where I just will talk and chat with people about stuff as we're playing. But I don't want to be like these boring other therapists. Like so many people's mental health is so bad because they're going off of outdated and old information. So.
For sure. Well, that leads into my last question before the story section. I have a lot of friends that like struggle with mental health, and it's always hard for me when people reach out to me and they're like, you know, I need help, and I'm not a therapist. Like I don't know the extent of what I can tell them is like, go to Psychology Today, because that's where I went to. And I got lucky where it was like the person that was available to me ended up being really good, got me in, like, and changed my life for the better. But like, if there's people watching or listening that need help, where are good starting places for them to get those resources?
The first thing is you need to change the way that you're thinking about going about therapy. Because I had the same problem when I had to go find a therapist. Like even as a therapist, it's hard to find good therapists. I tried to find one in Seattle, and the first thing this therapist said to me, well, man, for a black man, you're so articulate. I'm like, God, I am a therapist. Like I do the same shit that you do. I went to the same sensitivity culture. What the hell, man? You know? So what I tell people...
Specific insult again.
I don't know. In my life, I get them quite often. But the first thing I tell people is you are seeking out someone to help you with problems in your life. Be picky. You don't want just anyone. You know, Psychology Today, therapyden.com, all these places, at the end of the day, it's like a therapist dating site. You're going through and you're looking and you're trying to, we all go off first impressions, who looks the hottest, you know, like just tell the truth, you know. But I would say, treat it as if you are shopping for a car or and again, I want to be mindful that there are certain people who don't have the financial ability to be able to do it. There's a difference between being a therapist that takes insurance and being a therapist that doesn't. A therapist that takes insurance, I mean, no disrespect, but like they have a constant influx of clients because they're contracted with insurance companies. And if they give subpar therapy, who's going to know? They're going to always, as opposed to me, I do super bill. So you have to pay me, but then I give you a receipt and you give that to your insurance company. That is not accessible to a lot of people because some people can't do that. In my own practice, I offer financial scholarships, I offer discounts, I offer something to help people who aren't in a position to pay. But the first thing that I say always is you have to change the way you're looking at it. Like these people, they work for you, right? Like your therapist, that you are hiring them. So don't go in with this, oh, I'm so, please. No, like, hey, I'm ready to do some work on myself. Are you somebody who can help me?
This is a question I need to ask.
Yeah.
What is the objective of a therapist?
Yeah. The objective of a therapist is to help you get to the place that you want to be. So when people come into my office, I'm at, what is your goals? My first question is, how will you know when this is over? Therapy can go on forever, bro. It can go on forever.
And what about the people that don't know what those goals are?
Sorry, I'm gonna take a sip of water real quick.
Yeah. Because I know people that are in that place right now.
I'm skilled enough to ask you questions to get you to that point.
Okay.
But at the end, I don't ever, like, if they don't know what the goal is, then if they start with me, the goal is, let's figure out the goal. And we don't talk about anything else other than that. Because if not, man, I could talk to you about so much stuff. We can sit there and by the end of it, I had a great conversation. I didn't learn anything, And then people don't know how to break up with their therapist when they need to. And now you're like, therapy doesn't work. No, that particular, but it really is. When I found a therapist that was a good fit for me, it changed my life, man. It changed my life. It was really, really awesome. So
yeah, that's one experience I can say too. Like I've had multiple ones, and if you meet somebody and it's not a good fit,
right.
The other side of this, outside of just like going to Psychology Today, shopping, factoring in private versus like what insurance, what about people that are like, they're immediately struggling, like panic attacks, anxiety attacks, manic level episodes, like what would you recommend for somebody like that, where it's like, hey, I want to go see somebody, but there's a waiting list, I can't get in. Because
thank you for talking about the problems with the mental health system, and I hope that someone comes up with a way to solve that problem, because it exists. It exists. Accessibility is an issue, and there is no one size fits all. You know, in the immediate, if you're talking about, like, if you're asking me to put on my therapist, how to immediately call 911 or go to your local emergency room. Like, if that's the place where you're at, then yeah, you need to go to a local health clinic. You need to call this, make sure you have the suicide hotline number if that's an issue that you're struggling with. But like for those immediate crises, I'm sorry, I mean, the emergency room, if you have insurance, if you have a clinic, that's kind of the places that you have to go. But we don't have a very good system set up. And a lot of the times what happens is people have those crises, they go out and do something, and then they come in through the criminal justice system instead of through the mental health system. So,
and I do think there is kind of a gap there where some people think, oh, I don't have a broken arm, so I shouldn't go to the emergency room, where it's like you can't see the physical issue with the brain. But like I have friends that like are on medication, and they've like slipped in and out of episodes, and like in those moments, so like what should I do here? So
you need a strong support system. I mean, and I really think that's important. You don't want to be your friend's therapist, because I mean, I charge a lot of money to do that. You know, you don't want to be your friend's therapist, but you do want to have a good support system. People that, okay, look, it seems like, and you want to catch it. You don't want people to. You wouldn't get to that point if you had a good support system already. You know, like I think sometimes we get to those points where it's already like I'm already at the end of the spiral. I should have reached out to someone. I should have called my best friend a week ago and tell them that my mom called me and said, hey, when are you having children again? And that was really upsetting to me. But they don't. People don't recognize the things that happen to them in their lives that they could talk with people about. You know,
it's hard too.
Yeah.
I mean, when the water's already muddy, to then try to be operating with like a clear mindset. I've had my versions of that, and one of the things having you on, I did want to just like broach those topics, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's get into the story section. I got some intro music for you, and then we can wrap up.
Sweet.
It's story time. It's story time with Adam. Yeah, it's story time. It's story time with Adam and friends.
Wow. Did you sing that yourself?
That wasn't me, but it is a beautiful song. Thank you.
It completely changed the mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Set the tone.
Wow. So let's just go to the story.
Let's go straight. I watch it just be a...
Look, so can I just tell when you told me to tell you a funny story, I immediately got a panic attack.
Really?
Yeah. Trying to figure out like, well, how do I tell you a funny story? Because none of the stories I have to tell, like when they're not funny. It's actually very tragic stuff that should never have happened. You know, like going out on a date with a woman who was 6 feet tall, and she left with a guy that was 6'3" on the date.
Wait, what?
Yep. That's just one of the. Yeah, no, I went out on a date. It was after my divorce. You know, I moved here and immediately got divorced, which is great. You know, like that's just what happens. Sorry, I saw a little smirk.
Yeah. No, I have a buddy that had the same thing happen.
Like, what is it about moving to a new place that's like you're either gonna stay together or get a divorce immediately?
That was here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a divorce like immediately after I got here.
Man.
So I had to go through some period of growth, but then eventually I got to this place where I was like, all right, man, I'm ready to start dating again. You know. And so I went and got the apps and stuff and took a few really nice pictures and stuff. There's several stories I could tell about this, but took a really nice picture and I started getting some hits. You know, I realized I'm attractive. You know, men, we don't know that we're attractive. You know, I had someone buy me some flowers on a date the other day and like blew my mind. Like,
really?
It was amazing. I'd never had anything like that before in my life. But I started going out on dates and I met, you know what? I want to tell the story about the 6 foot tall person, but I want to tell a different one. And so I went out on, I was on the dating apps and I matched with this person. And I just want to talk about how like therapists don't have it all together either. Like we get anxious too. Like, and you can, you know, a lot of the times people think that, well, because you're a therapist, you have your life together and you know, and you never get anxious. And no, like it still happens.
You got it.
Yes. Overthinking the worst case scenario is my like, I just love to do it. I just love to go there. So I met one of the most beautiful people I had met up until that point, which would really be everyone because I got married at 21 and I really did, you know, so anybody that showed any attention at that point would have been great. Very beautiful. And so came time for the date, and she calls me about an hour before we're supposed to meet up. And she's like, hey, I'm just checking in. Want to make sure that you're still coming and still excited. And I'm like, yes. Oh, this is great. You're checking in with me? This is amazing. And so then 30 minutes before the date, she calls. And I hear this giggle in the background. I'm like, oh, what's that? She's like, well, do you mind if my friend comes on the date with me? And I'm like, she thinks you're cute too. Would you mind if she comes? And instead of, oh no, I really got this, I'm hot. My worst, I'm in Seattle. This is a new city. So I immediately went to, I'm about to get human trafficked. That's what this is. This is a human trafficking situation. Because there's no way I'm that hot that two women want to go on a date with me at the same time. So
this is that trauma making its way back into
destroying my opportunities.
Yeah. And a little bit of like Southern influence.
Yeah.
Because it's not crazy in this city for like people. They're into all kinds of stuff.
And I have become like, it's so funny. I look at myself now and I wonder like if the child version of me could see me, like, would they try to rebuke me or would they like be, like, would I be a superhero to them? What would they think? Like, what has happened to you, sir? What are you doing? Your hair is red. You're wearing, diamond, demon earrings and stuff. But I ended up, I told you, what? I was really feeling the date, but I think that maybe we should reschedule and do it again. And so I missed out on that potential threesome because of my anxiety. And
I love that it's assumed potential threesome though.
Yeah, of course. Why else would her? And I told this story to one of my friends, and she was like, "Well, maybe she just wanted to be safe on the date and have a friend."
That's where I went.
So the narcissism went there. I guess there's like, a little narcissism. I've been married. Of course, that's what I thought happened. So if you're out there, that's my bad. And yeah, that's
super funny. And what happened with the 6'3" person though?
Oh my God, I knew you were going to ask about that.
Yeah, I just.
So she told me how tall she was, and that's fine. I think I was just interested in an experience, and so we met at a brewery and had a few drinks, and then we decided to go to, I think it was Barbosa or another place. God, why am I telling this? And so once we get to Barbosa and the place, she kind of meets some people and they offer her some cocaine. And so she goes and does cocaine, which is fine. I'm not trying to judge people. I'm in Seattle. I'm not trying to marry you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I should have known where the night was going, and that's fine. And that was all great. And like, she looked over and I like, kind of got on my tippy toes and gave her a little kiss and stuff.
So wait, how much of a gap is there in height?
She was wearing heels at the time too, so it was like I was looking up at her.
Yeah,
like I was.
How tall are you? Can I?
5'11".
5. Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was looking up.
Yeah.
Like she had to like caress me to.
But this thing about like height, like nobody talks about this with women in height and how they're if there's a different, like that's the number one factor.
And the thing is, so we went to the club and like I kind of did my little cute, I'm going to separate from you a little bit and go out and let me show you that I can get attention too.
Yeah.
But man, I just saw the dude walk in the club. He was 6'3", and I'm not mad. I like, for real, like partially not because I don't care. Like it's fine. Like I'm not that person that's interested in that experience anymore. But like when I saw them kind of talking and shit, I was like, oh, okay,
It's literally 4 inches changed the entire thing. Which 4 inches makes a big difference in a lot of different areas.
It does make a big difference. But I just imagine if like two giants, were like in the world and they had to, they're always dealing with us short people and then they walk in and see it. I get that. I'm glad I could be part of that love story. Yes.
Just you off on the side watching. Did you go home alone that night, though?
I did.
That's too bad.
I did.
No, it would have been nice if you met somebody who was 4 inches shorter than you.
Me. Yeah, and
just like it just kept going down a line.
Like the cycle of abuse and trauma eventually.
So funny.
Yeah, no, but if she's out there, like, I remember the next day she sent me a message, and again, I'm not trying to clown you. Like, I don't know the chances of her ever seeing this. Like, I honestly do not care at all. I mean, you can call me.
You didn't.
Like, but I don't care.
Yeah, you did. You can call me.
You still have my number. But she sent me a message the next day. I was like, that wasn't really supposed to happen. Which part? The cocaine? Or you leaving with the guy?
All of the above. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on. Is there anything you can plug, like just for people watching, like where can they find your stuff? Where can they follow you, support you?
Absolutely, yeah. So if you want to follow my content, I have a TikTok called The Situational Therapist. I also have a YouTube channel. It's The Situational Therapist. I have a Twitch channel called Adult Play Therapy, where I play video games and talk about mental health. And I also have, it's an app, but it's a community platform. It's called The Situational Practice, and you can get that on iOS and Android. And honest to goodness, this is the maybe apocalypse to me. So I'm trying to teach people things that will allow them to survive both if this is the apocalypse and if it isn't, and, you know, kind of straddling that line a little bit. And so I do a lot of that on my app. But yeah, those would be the main places to follow me. So.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks everybody for listening. If you've been watching us on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe, notifications bell. And then if you're just listening, make sure to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Throw a comment and rate, or all the above. And as always, follow us on Instagram at FNFpod. We're gonna leave you with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. My wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to 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 my wave pool, my wave pool.